Oh, yeah. Life just got sweeter now that WLFE-DB has merchandise. Show your support by purchasing your t-shirts for WLFE, Paratalk Radio, Inside the Drag Closet, and more. But it doesn't stop there. T-shirts, coffee mugs, tanks, buttons, cloth bags, and more. Go to WLFE-DB.com. On the top bar, click on the merchandise tab and bam! There you go. You got merch. Support the shows. WLFE-DB.com. WLFE Digital Broadcast Network is on TV. You can watch all of our shows on WLFE-DB.com. Check out our channels. Paranormal View for all of your paranormal type shows. LGBTQ Friends for all of our LGBTQ shows. Variety Unlimited for all other shows. It runs 24/7 right on WLFE-DB.com. You'll even catch the lives, all in one place. Never miss an episode, past or future. WLFE-DB.com, where our shows are your shows. Search for your favorite shows like Where's My Sage, Inside the Drag Closet, Across the Pond, Everything Yet Nothing, Paratalk Radio, Step into the Paranormal, The Creepy Parlor, Just Cindy, and more. Now you won't miss an episode. Remember, follow Facebook Live and YouTube Live. Make sure you subscribe and follow your favorite WLFE-DB radio shows. You can find our shows where you listen to your favorite podcasts, like Spotify, Amazon Music, iHeartRadio, and more. WLFE-DB Radio is looking for podcasts to join our family. You don't have to fit any strict genre. We're a plethora of shows. If you're looking to jump on a growing network, then contact us at WLFEDBradio@gmail.com.
Wow, Amazon Music just got a whole lot better. Your favorite shows from WLFE-DB Radio can now be found there. Yes, we are on Amazon Music, found under podcasts. Download the app, find podcasts, and search all of your favorite shows. Shows like Where's My Sage, Across the Pond, Everything Yet Nothing, Skeptical Help Bar, The Creepy Parlor, Just Cindy, and much more. Now you don't have to miss an episode ever. Amazon Music is WLFE-DB Radiofied.
More from WLFE-DB Radio Network after this.
Hey, I'm Hollis Taylor, and I'm a non-binary person, and I call myself a divine androgen. Be like saying that you're a monk or a practitioner of magic or something like that. Maybe it depends on what path you walk. See, one of the things I noticed as I started to come out and started to identify as non-binary, I started to realize that there was no spiritual path for people like me. There were some things like indigenous people, but I don't want to culturally appropriate. I didn't grow up on a reservation. And I think Two-Spirit is great, and I want them to keep it. And I felt like I had to define my own path, because I didn't have a huge background in these things. And so I started to explore things. And, of course, some religions shame us, right? And then there's some religions that don't even include us, like Wicca. I went to many rituals, and never, not once, did they mention someone that was both or neither gender or god or goddess. Unless you asked, and then they would often have a goddess or something. But there was no language for it. And so as I started my own spiritual path, my own path of holistic learning, I learned that I really needed a spiritual path in order to be who I was. I felt like it was part of humanity. It was part of being a human. And I needed to be celebrated in my spiritual path. I needed to be seen, and I didn't want any of the shame. So that's not for me. That's theirs. And so as I started to unfold, I started to realize that I had my own path, and each one of us actually do. You do. Everybody does. Has their own spiritual path that they're to unlock. Your authenticity is in your heart, just like it was in mine. There were some things I had to go through to unlock those keys, to get closer to who I really was inside. Because all of us are divine conscious beings, and you have to work through some weird stuff sometimes, like cultural norms, and gender roles, and gosh, mental health, and the crap your parents programmed in there. Sometimes we have to unfold that out. And when we do, we get to an authentic surface, an authentic person when we move through those surface things. And when we find our authenticity, we can go deeper. We can love deeper. We can love ourselves deeper. We can love other people deeper. And we can enjoy our life fuller and more, and feel more complete by the time it comes time to, end, because we all die. None of us get out of alive. So just consider, as you start to identify and find your gender is not something that was given, that is not something that was assigned to you when you were born. As you start to realize your gender expression, no matter what it is, I'm talking to the drag queens, the drag kings, the gay guys, transgender people, non-binary people, gender-neutral people, all of us. We're all here for a reason. The divine sent us here. We're all here to define our own path. Make it what it is. Follow that part of you that doesn't follow the rules. The part of you that doesn't do what other people are doing. Because that part of you will lead you to the path you need to be on. And you will manifest the beautiful things that the world desperately needs. All of us we need you. We need you to step up and bring your most beautiful light to the world. And I hope that that's what this book does. That my book, Divine Androgen, A Sacred Path for Gender Variant People, and this channel will inspire you to find out who you are and open it up to the world and deliver it. As if we were all waiting for it. But we didn't know what we were waiting for exactly. Show us what that is.
Welcome to Rainbow Soul, part of the WLFE DB Network, an explorative discussion about spirituality beyond mainstream religions. Hollis Taylor, author, psychic, astrologer, and alchemical mage, brings their non-binary perspective together with fellow drag king and trans man Lacrosse Ortiz, a Jewish Taino with spiritual background of exploration that has led him to an atheist perspective. Join these guys as they explore deep and difficult topics, all related to spirituality, offering a queer perspective and exploration of interesting topics and engaging guests to help explore conversations for the Rainbow Soul.
Hello.
Hello. Welcome, everyone. Welcome to Rainbow Soul. I'm so glad you're here. Welcome, Lacrosse. It's so
Thank
good to see you,
you.
brother. Every
Same.
single week. Every single week, I'm like, oh, I'm going to see Lacrosse today. Cool.
Same.
All
Like,
right.
what are we going to learn today?
Right. Exactly. Exactly, because I always learn too. It's always that's the beauty of life is learning.
Yeah.
And first of all, we want to tell you who we are in case this is your first time watching Rainbow Soul. I'm Hollis Taylor. I'm the author of Divine Androgyny. It's a sacred path for gender variant people. And I am a witch. I am a psychic, a medium, and a general all around freak. And, and I'm also a drag king, and I also happen to be non-binary. So, and I'm the host of the show, and my friend here is Lacrosse.
Hi, my name is Lacrosse. I am Jewish Taino atheist. I believe in spirituality, just not from divine. Also a drag king, or retired for the moment, kind of on the back seat for a little bit. Mostly into learning home renovations, things like that. And I should give a thing. About through Kaleidoscope Eyes, I'm not doing the show anymore because of just things, life happens, so but I am starting a online class once a month, which is called Master of None. So that's pretty much.
I wanted to make sure that people could see it down there. So there's the link if you want to catch Lacrosse's classes. If you vibe with Lacrosse and you totally want to learn more with Lacrosse, that's the page you should follow. And I think you have a class coming up on totem animals, eh?
Yes. We'll be doing September totems. I think it's the raven, the crow, and the bear, because September goes into, it's the astrological part is like Libra and part is Virgo. So it's kind of bringing both months. So I'm excited for the classes because I get to learn with people. I'm not a teacher. Let me put a disclaimer there. I'm not a teacher. Everybody's just going to be learning with me. So it's kind of like that.
I think it's an interesting way to do things. Sometimes we pedestal teachers and expect them to be something they're not. Often we expect them to be perfect. And they're usually not. They're just human beings like the rest of us. Yeah. So exactly. That's kind of a silly thing we do. So I'm actually I actually think that's a really cool idea, is to kind of learn alongside of others. And I think that's awesome. I actually identify as bear totem, so I totally think that's an awesome subject. Right. I think it's totally awesome. And you know what, guys, if you check out, now we haven't gotten our shirts yet, but at some point in the very near future, we will have Rainbow Soul t-shirts, and there's a special crow shirt. So you should definitely check it out. And, just check it out. You can see the link there, and I'll post it in the chat. I want to welcome everyone. Welcome, Chanel. It's so good to see you. Jello. And good evening, Sandy. Hey, love seeing you here. So glad you guys are here. I'm glad you guys showed up. And, today we have a really special topic, at least in my opinion, because a lot of us, we have different things. Hi, Chase. Welcome.
Hey, Chase.
Glad you're here, Chase. Hi, Chase. Yeah, Chase is a fellow drag king. Yeah. So anyway, I chose this topic because a lot of us need different ways to tap into our spiritual side. Like, everybody has a different way, right? And I think there's probably unlimited ways, probably. I mean, I don't even know how many ways there are. It would probably take me all day to count. But I think there's different ways that you tap into your soul or you express your soul. And so I started thinking about how, and one of the ways that I thought about it was through art. especially through painting. And music we'll be doing next. We'll have a musician next week. So I have thought about that too, because that pops into a lot of people's brains. But this week we're talking about artists like painters. And you can see there's beautiful art behind me. And one of those artists is here tonight. But the beautiful thing about, I think, art is that it can come in so many different styles and ways. And so I tried to choose 3 different artists tonight that are just different from each other. That's all. And it's, for me, it's not about who's better or anything like that. It's more about just your style. And I think there's a lot of different ways of expressing and seeing, and even viewing art can be a soul experience for you. It can be, I can even find it. I don't know if you've ever been to like an art show, Lacrosse.
Yes.
And it can kind of be soothing to the soul. Yeah. Yeah. Like if you just look at the art, you're just kind of like, oh, like for me,
feeling their energy, their expression.
Yeah. For me, this does it for me because I like rainbows and trees. If it has rainbows and trees in it, I'm good. But that's just me. But everybody has a different thing they probably see. So, so one of the first artists I wanna bring out. Now, this person, I was like, I just happened to stumble upon because I was like, there's got to be non-binary artists somewhere, and we exist, right? Lacrosse, right? Like like shit, we exist somewhere. And so I started looking around, and then I was like, whoa. And I think for me, I was just like, wow, there's an artist that I need to bring out, because some of the art that they had was like, yes, I like that. And so so the first person I'm going to bring out is B. B, welcome to the show. Welcome.
Hi.
Hi.
Hi, B. Tell us who you are.
Hi. I am a non-binary artist in California. And I'm also a green witch, and I am also autistic, and I am also deeply invested in making music and making art. I wish that I could teach art all the time for free, but that's not how our system works, and that would be too draining. So I do occasionally do like little TAing or assisting gigs, like that sort of thing. But right now I'm actually working on character design for a small game studio in Georgia. That's my current occupation, is very much actually a conceptual artist for fantasy games. And it's in that space recently that I've been able to like quietly nudge and be like, hey, there's no reason for any of these characters to have any kind of gender at all. They're aliens. Like let's actually embrace this. It would be really great if it just actually worked, that there wasn't a binary in the mechanics of the game. And everyone's like, huh, I haven't thought of that. So hopefully that I'm the earwig that whispers in the ear, as it were. But that is who I am.
Yeah, and I want to say that one of the pieces of art, like this one right here, I was like, I don't know what gender they are, and I don't really care. It doesn't matter.
That's me and one of my partners on a frog hunt. To be fair, we don't actually have those onesies, but we've talked about it many times. March actually, also known as Tired Goblin, is someone who I met actually during a period of time when I started painting. And really started to dive into the concept of like having people be muses, or like using energy that you're picking up from someone as the actual drive to begin a painting. Like as an artist, oftentimes I'll struggle with the executive function of beginning a painting, because I'm just drained from a long day or a lot of social interaction, and even though I know it gives me joy, I don't have the energy for it because my brain is saving that for later. And then sometimes you just get to really dive right in and do a fantasy piece like this, where I probably, if I hadn't gone on adventures with my friend March, I might not have wanted to draw a picture of myself doing this alone. But because there was inexplicably connected to it, you know, a person who I care about, March is also non-binary. And so we like to go on what I call non-binary tea parties, where we basically get tea, cups, we dress up, we go deep into the woods somewhere, and then we take a few pictures, but mostly we just nap and like drink tea and listen to, we got a cassette player that, I think the last one we listened to was The Wrath of Khan on cassette tape. But then the cassette player ate it, but it was pretty good actually. I mean, very intense when the Klingon one comes on, but you know, it didn't really fit the tea party, to be fair.
Wow.
but yeah, using painting especially to create the sort of androgynous looks that you would like to have, and to create representations that really affix to just the pure joy that exists within this world. That as a non-binary autistic artist, I would rather just spend all my time, doing, like going out into the woods and just noticing and observing the natural world that we live in, and how much joy that can bring.
Yeah, exactly. Beautiful. I love being out in the woods. So, and I love having images like in my house that remind me of the woods.
I love tea parties and dress up. Those are great.
Oh my gosh, it's so much fun. Yeah, there's pictures on my Instagram for sure.
I'll definitely follow. I love tea parties.
Oh my god, yeah, it's so much fun. We recently had one that was like all the people actually. That was that other painting you saw that we had the old Greg party where we drank Baileys out of shoes and did watercolors by moonlight. It was gorgeous. But yeah, the draw to find non-binary friendship through creating art that is essentially honors non-binary identity is also like pretty big. Like, found a few groups and found a few other artists to follow, and then as I see what they're working on, I go, oh my god, like that makes me want to just go back onto this one painting that I did and just add a little bit of leg hair, because it would make so much more sense for this character to have a little bit of fuzz going on down there. Like, they wouldn't have like clean legs. Like, they're in the woods. Like, this actually makes physical sense. And like, as an autistic artist, sometimes I really need everything to make sense or it doesn't work. Like, if the shadow's in the wrong spot, my brain immediately goes, that's not, and I can't even enjoy it. When it's rendered art, when it's art that's meant to look like what it is, because to be honest, the most effective way to use painting in gender expression is abstract art. Like, as much as you want, you can do rendered paintings of things and have them look just like they do in a picture. But if you're really trying to explore something, then what you are working with is the construct that you walk to the table with, and breaking that down as many of us have to break down barriers that we learn when we're younger. That you are actually breaking down barriers when you paint. And that there's things that translate from painting directly to non-binary identity, and to a certain extent autistic identity, but for me they're interrelated somewhat, because gender performance and masking are so similar that I can't always separate the two. So I just kind of treat them as the same thing. But if you consider what paint, and in my case watercolor, it's this, this hard pigment, you add water to it, it takes on a different tone while it's wet. And so you have a brush full of this pigment that you're pretty sure you know what it is, because as soon as you put it on the white paper, or even more so when you put it on a wash where there's already a layered color down, the color you see here is going to be different when it's placed on top of something else. And furthermore, after it dries, it's going to be something entirely different. It might not even still be in the same place. It may have moved. Now, some people like to refer to their art as like their children and their parents. And I don't think that's a fair comparison at all. But beyond that, you can sort of see how that sort of makes sense, where it's like, oh yeah, you created something and there it was. That's not how it is with children. Any of us who have had to come out to our parents know that they have an expectation of what we're going to be and what we are. And some of us will even shake our shoulders and be like, no, you'll always be this to me. It's like, no. That's exactly the same feeling that I get sometimes when I'm painting, and I look down and what I've painted is a different color now that it's dry. That parallel, and just being comfortable with, this is something and I want it to be something. But as soon as I've placed it on the paper, and as soon as I've let it move and it's dried, it is now something else. And it is going to be up to other people to interpret what that is. I can't show someone a picture, be like, look at this stork. If someone's like, that's a great cow, I'm be like, that's what you saw. Okay. Like, I'm not here, that's the tricky parental part of making art, is that you are collaborating with someone. Maybe painting is making more sense to non-binary artists right now, because we're all quelling to connect with people around us when they just are constantly not seeing us for who we are and treating us differently than how we feel inside.
That's absolutely speaks to me. And I'm sure Eve I didn't know you were a non-binary artist, Eve. I knew you were non-binary, but I did not know you were an artist. Please send me a message because we will probably do this subject again. So please, Eve, reach out to me. And I just want to say, yeah, I want to see more reflections of non-binary people. And the other thing is why do we gender certain characters anyway? Especially like the next person I'm going to introduce is like animals. Like, is it really necessary that we gender animals? And so this person is really special to me because when I was with my partner, we were trying to find an artist that could really paint the reflection of this story that we had that was super special. And it's called The Dancing Hippo. Okay. And it's actually Bright Hawk's, my partner's story. But what had happened at this point in our story is that we decided to write a book that might be gender nonconforming. In fact, none of the characters would be gendered. And it was super important that we found someone that could add the feeling and the intention and understood all of those pieces. And so when I seen her art I think I was in an art show or something, and I'm pretty sure I seen this. And I was
Great.
like, what the hell?
That's like my mood most of the time.
That's
like,
good.
I don't know. And I just remember seeing an animal's face and going, wow, she's really talented. So I'm going to bring out Amanda Moore. Welcome, Amanda.
Hello, how are you?
Oh, welcome.
Welcome. I'm really good. And I'm so glad you're here. And I'm so glad to bring you part of the show because I think it's super special to this book is super special to all of us. I mean, you have tons of time and effort involved in it. So do I. And so does Bright Hawk. It was a huge group project. A lot of us did it. So why don't you tell us about who you are, though, other than the illustrator of the Dancing Hippo?
Okay, well, I'm a visual artist. I was an event producer. I have 14 years experience as a death doula. And I've also worked privately. I've never said this out loud on anything, but as an evidential medium, I've done since I was really little. And that kind of having a foot in both worlds, I think definitely comes out through my work and just that connection between like nature and spirit. And yeah. What I do, I make things pretty and I take things and I like to make things real and inspire others to explore their own, imaginations and freedom of expression.
Yeah, and I really appreciate the spiritual part because I've definitely danced with you spiritually.
Yes.
So as a sibling in that, I appreciate and honor you, even as a medium. So, and Bright Hawk, of course, is sending you love. So much love for Amanda.
I love you, Bright Hawk. Very sweet.
What? Okay, sorry. There's an emergency in the house. Like my phone keeps going off. Okay, so anyway, and then the next artist that I was like, I have to have on the show is actually an ally for sure. And the thing about her art is that I was moved by like, first of all, they did an oracle deck, and that's actually something I want to do probably a tarot deck, but in my eye, that is one of the things that like I might like to do. So in that way, it's kind of inspiring, but I won't be painting. My partner will be painting. Bright Hawk will be doing the painting, not me. But just following her process and then also seeing her grow in 2020 as an artist, like producing more and more and more stuff. And I think one of the pieces that was really called out to me, actually, that I got to see online was this one. And I was like, wow, this is really powerful, in my opinion. I first of all identify with the buck, with lots of bucks in my backyard and the star, and just the whole thing is really beautiful. So I want to welcome to the show Shara Osgood. Welcome, Shara.
Hi, everyone. So good to be here.
I'm so glad you're here. Can you tell us about who you are?
Well, I've been an artist since my first waking breath. I started out like in the closet, literally painting in the closets and behind my bed and anywhere that was a secret. And it wasn't about shame, but it was about creating magic. And I feel like a lot of my life has been about that in whatever modality. But I spent a lot of time doing body paint and henna, and it became a very transformational and healing thing for me with my canvases. And during the pandemic, my canvases were more about that connection with myself than it was about helping other people. It was about tapping into my own self and my my awareness of myself as a channel of spirit. You know, I feel like art, it's not just about therapy for myself, like to make me feel calm, you know, when I paint, but also channeling what's coming through spirit, you know, through the divine, and planting seeds of possibility of how we move through this crazy time of like uncertainty and change. You know, it's more change than I think we've ever seen in our lifetimes in a short span of time. And so I work toward trying to put those thoughts and ideas into visual stories. And that's why a lot of my early stories were about like the seeker. We can put that piece up maybe.
Here, hold on. The Seeker. I tried to leave them the same name. Here we go.
Yeah,
Yes.
I don't know what order they're in, but this was a piece that I started before the pandemic, and it sparked from body painting from a living canvas art show that I did at a gallery called Jungle Science in New York. But every time I saw the photograph of the body paint, it made me think of somebody searching for all the answers outside of themselves rather than within. But as I painted, that process evolved into my understanding of how we're all connected with everything in the universe, and how, you know, he's seeking like out in, you know, in the stratosphere, out in space, out beyond our physical bodies into the spiritual world.
I agree. It's definitely a really special piece, and I appreciate your art. I appreciate everybody's art. And I that's the thing about painting, is that it seems to me like it kind of helps the person that, now I'm not a painter, but from what I've witnessed, every person I know that paints or creates art in any way, it seems to me that it's therapeutic for you all. And it's almost like prayer, like in that it brings you closer to the divine. Like somehow you connect with your soul or your higher power or the divine, however you may view it. And it seems to be different for everyone, but it still has the potential. Is that true for all of you? Like, is that true, B? Is that true for you?
Actually, funny story. So I used to paint lots of fairies. I used to draw lots of fairies all the time, all kinds of different fairies, different kinds of wings, different kinds of legs. And so it wasn't until someone pointed out, and this was shortly before I actually like was like, oh yeah, I'm just non-binary, like, and I came out, that someone was like, oh, and I noticed that they're all self-portraits. And most of them are blue fairies. So like, you know, Pinocchio, what it's like almost like a trans metaphor was coming out through the art. So yeah, I would say that it's there's definitely elements to it that you know, beyond the meditative practice that are at some point divine. And even if you look at the physical aspects of it, right, like especially for painting, you have your mise en place, right? You've got your little thing of water or your thing of linseed oil or thinner or whatever. You've got your bucket. You get all your stuff spread out almost like it's an altar, and then you lay before, and then when you finally do dive in, there isn't a mnemonic thing that's going on. You're no longer even needing to communicate with the outside world. You have complete, for the first time for many of us, control over everything. Where every little tree is going to go, who knows what spice, like if it's a landscape or whatever, you have complete control over everything. And for some of us, that has not been a common experience in life, especially people who are like late diagnosed autistic, or, you know, if you just generally aren't talked over. And
That's interesting, B, because I just watched, I don't know if you guys have seen it, but the Bob Ross documentary, and that's exactly what he said.
Really?
He said that he, in his documentary, his quote numerous times is that painting is the only place you have complete control over.
It's true. It's very therapeutic to exist in a space where you have complete control for just a few hours at a time, a little microdosing actual control, you know, like microdosing autonomy, you know, for anyone who's had their autonomy denied, it's medicinal. Oh my gosh.
Wow. Did you experience? Go ahead, Shara.
You can create any world. You can create the things that you're longing for, and you can put it into actual space where people can see it, even if it doesn't exist in the world yet. So it's so alchemical and magical to be able to visualize. And even if you're creating it like I do, often I don't know what it's going to look like at the end. I don't have that like set, you know, I'm painting something. Like if you're painting a portrait and it has to look like this person, I'm painting the things that we don't see necessarily, like what's happening energetically, that a lot of people are aware of it emotionally, but, you know, having a visual touch point for it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Definitely. I feel
Wow.
like that's where it started for myself, is when I was very young. My father used to say I would like scribe on the walls. They call them mandiglyphs. And it was just a way for me to say, like, I'm feeling these things, but I don't know how to verbalize it. So let me draw a picture. And growing up, it was always a way for me to visually articulate these things I didn't know how to name, because I always had a very symbiotic relationship with nature and animals. And there was always like this, something that was unseen to like normal adults around me, and I'm like, no, but there's this thing. It's like I don't have a word for it. That's what it looks like, you know. So
I think we lost Hollis.
Oh no.
Oh no.
So
okay. There we go.
I love that you said that, Amanda, because I feel like I had a similar experience in that early in my childhood, I was really, really connected to a lot of magic and aware of spirits and connected to nature, but I didn't have a vocabulary to articulate it or to talk to anybody about it. And I feel like I kind of buried it for a while, and my art just brings it out in so many different ways, and has been so much a part of my personal evolution and my process.
Definitely.
Wow. I think it's definitely a process. And first of all, B, I want to tell you that Bright Hawk loves the altar and empowerment part. I totally have seen Bright Hawk paint, and that's exactly what happens. It's like a little altar comes out there.
I not part of the painting process out there too now. Like I've got like alchemical things that I find, like I like to pretend the fairies leave it for me, but like I found a bat wing on a stump, and I found like a newt that had dried out in the road, and perfectly, you know. So just set them down, like a little mouse skull here, and maybe one little wishbone right there from some small bird, and then start painting. And you know, having that to kind of cross-reference, I find that I sometimes paint better when I'm completely surrounded by clutter. If I'm sensorily overstimulated, then it lets me focus more. And
You too, Amanda. You too, Amanda.
Here, then this becomes the issue, and I have to look away. I have to, you know. So yeah, it's all about building little goblin holes.
I so hear you.
You know, at least I've got 4 to 5 rocks in every pocket at all times. So like I've got some click clacks to like set about, and then yeah, it's just.
I paint rocks too.
Oh yeah.
So yeah, one of my meditations, I paint. You know,
do you ever put them back after you paint them? And just
I do all the time. I plant little seeds in fairy gardens all over.
Love it. That's the style.
Yeah,
you're instilling the world with magic, because when someone finds a stone like that, they are left with only wonder.
It's so true.
For that one person, you have recreated something magical in the world briefly, and they are experiencing it because you did that. And you don't get to see any of it. That's not the point. The point is you sent the energy out there, and at some point it was received. Love it.
Yeah. I mean, it's all magic for me. Everything I do, and I set some intentions, like making my own pigments and doing prayers over things and painting wishes on the base of the canvas before I paint the underpainting, you know, setting intention. There's so much power to that. You can manifest incredible things.
Intention is the most important aspect of craft, really. Spell work.
I liked what Eve said, because some people think they can't paint. I usually encourage them to try an abstract, and they find it therapeutic, and are often surprised that they see what they look at, particularly if they have psychic abilities, which I think that's really important. Like, you know, because if you try to paint something, it could be particularly hard for some of us. It does seem to be a little bit of a skill as well. Right? Yeah. I mean, you know.
So with painting's tricky because like it doesn't translate to some of the hand-eye coordination things that you would have maybe gotten used to as like a young person. You might have understood how to write words and draw like basic stick figures. And most people start with stick figures. That's the easiest thing. But painting and the many different kinds of painting take discipline. They take a lot of practice, and in some cases they don't translate to the other. Like an oil painter might not be a very good acrylic painter, and vice versa. They would have to learn a whole new set of skills and disciplines in between mediums. So it's very complex, actually. Yeah.
I always wonder, Amanda. I always wonder about the faces that you give your animals, especially like this little guy. Like, I'm like, is this your teenager?
You know, that's me in the morning. That's how I was feeling that morning. And I also wanted to experiment with more colors that I wouldn't naturally choose, with that contrast, like a pop arty feel. And I also, believe it or not, I have a struggle with replicating patterns. It just gets all mixed up, and I really wanted to just try a pattern. And that's the emotion I was feeling diving into that project was that expression on his face, and just kind of like, ooh, I don't know if I'm ready for today. That's what that is.
That's great.
Yeah, because in the moment you were feeling like that, and I was like, wow.
Was that acrylic on lacquered wood?
Pardon?
Was that acrylic on lacquered wood?
Not lacquered wood, just regular acrylic on pine, I believe. And panelboard.
Yeah. And I another piece that, like, when I saw it, was this one. I was wondering definitely where it came from. Well, I mean, I kind of had an idea where it came from, but why don't you tell us about like what brought you to this piece?
Sure. Yeah. I was participating in Inktober, and I had decided to direct all of my angst and all of the energy I really couldn't do anything with. I mean, we were going through a very difficult election cycle. And I was overwhelmed. I was actually experiencing, I didn't know this, but I was experiencing my first really intense autistic burnout, where I couldn't function properly. And I crawled out of that by making art for hours at a time. Like I literally just was able to regain my functionality and figure out what was wrong in the first place, crawling out of that. And I believe that this specific prompt, which was bulky, took me a while. I was sitting up in a tower bedroom, like looking out at the moon, like trying to figure out bulky. What is bulky right now? And then I was thinking, like, actually, I'm quite overwhelmed by just the sheer weight of everything, of all the things, and to grasp it is almost impossible. Like if you can imagine a giant inflatable rubber ball that the face of which is one of these is massive annual wildfires, let's say, and that's just what you're looking at, and you're trying to grasp it, and you can barely lift it up, and even to do so, your hands are covering two other things, and on the other side of the ball, in more than 180 degrees of introspection, you can't see all the things that at any point something's going to remind you that that's also what you're grappling with, and the sheer weight of it all just felt so snazzy. So this is my tribute to 2016, the forests in the past. You know, we basically came right into 2016 like hot, and the first month. You guys remember that first month after the election was over, and we were all trying to figure out what happened. That felt like a year, and then the second month was a little better, and then eventually we survived. But like it doesn't. We watched the EPA get gutted. We watched all these things happen, and kind of had no choice but to sit on our hands through it. And even now, it still feels that way. So this was me taking that and visualizing it, so that it felt a little more real. Because like I don't know to what extent I'm having a disproportionate reaction sometimes to the world around me, or just the world within. I could sometimes occasionally get extremely upset because I stubbed my toe, and I think that the world is over for 5 seconds, and then I've acted as though it is for 5 seconds, and then you know, I used to experience shame over that. Now I'm just like, oh no, I just have like severe reactions to like tiny little things sometimes. But I have had a very severe reaction to the world that we live in. Maybe it's just capitalism. Maybe it's just like that, just literally living in a world where constantly I'm being reminded, oh, you need to do more in order to validate your existence. Where it's like, what? Maybe I'm just supposed to be a hobbit and like grow root vegetables and drink beer. Like I don't, what? And yeah, that's where I was at with this one. I didn't even know what 2021 was going to look like at that point because I drew this last year. So when
I could identify with it when I seen it. I definitely could identify with it. Like I know that's exactly how I felt. So I don't think you're the only one. I think that's what makes this piece powerful, is because it encompasses all of what it felt like entering into 2021.
Right. That overwhelm of juggling so many things and of all those things sort of coming down on us.
Doesn't feel like it's going to get any better like right away. Like that's the cliff right there. I mean, yes, you could go back, you could try to plant trees on your way, you know, continuing down the road. But I feel like metaphor is actually something that I work with a lot, because the way that I'm able to memorize things usually is by association. It's like one of those, you know, neurodivergent superpowers sometimes, is really just almost always thinking in allegory and having a running narrative in my head that's putting those allegories together. Some of them are bad allegories, folks. Like some of them are not good. I should not articulate them, but that's how I'm memorizing and remembering things. And so I'll spit them out sometimes. And then when it comes to political cartooning, free association, that actually is something that, you know, some people are gifted at for other things. Like you could give like Eminem 3 words and he would string together a rap for you like pretty quickly. Like if you give me a word and let me sit and think about it, I can come up with political cartoon that maybe relates to it or somehow envelops that. I just need a little bit of free association time to like sit there and kind of ping pong back and forth, and then it just sort of comes right out. But I really like that you appreciated that. You know, when I did that, it was October and I wasn't getting a lot of feedback on any of the art. I was doing a picture a day, spending hours on it, and then I posted it and I'd be like, oh, it's 11. I'm just gonna go to bed now, and you know. miss out on the dopamine kick from sharing stuff, which is, to be fair, a small part of it. It is. I also do get a little bit of dopamine from sharing my work.
I don't. Yeah, and I've actually. My partner is a performer, and other people, I've deal with a lot of performers, and a lot of performers have, and I have a lot of drag family, and a lot of us miss the return of an audience, and there is an adjustment to be made online. You have to like kind of wait a little longer for people to return something, and sometimes it could take months, right? And yeah, I totally get that. So you're not the only one at all. I think most artists feel that way. Most of us want to be validated, and I think that's why it's really important for us to say something about someone's art when we see it. And in fact, Shara, I wanted you to talk about this one because I'm a really deep person, and as I looked at this image, I was like, okay, at first glance, it kind of looks like an ocean or something. I think I might see a seahorse in there, which gets me excited. And then, and then I start looking deeper, and I'm like, wait a minute, I think I seen a skull and face, and I mean, there's just and you call it Into the Deep, right?
In the deep,
Deep.
yes.
Okay.
Yeah. And it really it was sort of a meandering exploration, but it kind of evolved the way that you're seeing it. Like it started out, it was just, okay, this is sort of a seascape, and let's see what's happening. But it had this feeling for me of all that mystery, because the world is covered, like there's more water than there is land on our planet, and yet there's so much of it that's never been explored. And it was a perfect metaphor for all of the mysteries. And as I started painting, I started seeing things like in the top right corner, there's this sort of rock, like this creature, this sea creature that's made up of what a kind of coral, and with antler, like branches coming out of the top. And then there's one that's like a cat flower on the left. There's all kinds of birds, even though it's underwater. There's little little creatures swimming everywhere. Like the more you look, the more you see. And I think that it's kind of how life is. Like we often don't see, and people who aren't artists especially, you walk through life and you only see the surface. But if you're an artist, you're looking at where the light hits a form and where the shadow forms and how things relate to each other. But you're looking in a much deeper way. And I feel like this was like a portal. It was like early on in the pandemic, I did a series of paintings like this, and they were all very much about searching. And it was very much like a dream, like when you're looking for something in your dream and you know that it's there, but you can't quite grasp it. Like that was the feeling I was trying to evoke. And it really was like being in a dream when I was working on it. And a lot of it really I didn't know what it was until I got to the end. And I was like, oh, okay, I see.
Yeah, Sandy said, I see a wolf's head.
Yep.
And I'm like, yeah, I mean, like, it's just there's a lot to this image. I appreciate your sharing more with us about that. And I think that that's kind of like what I'm saying to the audience and to people that are interested in exploring their soul, is that painting is one of those ways. Like,
you can't do it wrong. I mean, like that's the thing you were saying about like doing abstract art and doing art as therapy and fun. In that respect, there is no wrong. You can pick up tools and do whatever you want, whatever feels good. If you're a professional artist, then you're looking at how you want to most clearly express or articulate your thought or idea, whether it's abstract or literal, figurative or landscape, or narrative. Yeah, I think that, but I think there's room for everybody, and I think art is so important.
Yeah, I think we need more art in the world. Hey.
That's
Uh,
one of the biggest things that I missed so much is in 2019, I had created this tour for myself, and I was able to travel all over the country and up into Canada. And I really wanted to be accessible to young people who go to music and arts festivals, who are, they're there to open up and like blow up and feel freedom for the first time, some of them, and explore that, that safety net of self exploration. And the connections I made along the way, just by standing there and painting, and that connection with the young people coming up and asking questions and being like, oh, I wish I could paint again, or I wish I can make a career out of this. And it's like, you can. And then coming back home and to see some of those young people actually during the pandemic, they're like sending me their artwork and they're like, look what I'm doing. Like, I'm quitting my job. This is what I'm doing. And that like gave me life to like keep going. And I miss that feedback. I miss that connection to be accessible and in front of folks, it's interesting. Just, yeah.
I can see you totally shifting people, Amanda. I can see you totally helping people shift. Yeah, because you're very, you just have that vibe, and like you said, that not everything has to be like what you create, Amanda, because you definitely create some pretty cool stuff, but it can also be like Eve is saying here. I've had some that has turned out to be prophetic art, and many times my paintings have unintended faces and figures to them, and they also tend to be rotatable with different pictures on each angle, that's very interesting type of art. And I like abstract art, and I think I just like art, period. And one of the things that I enjoy, like when I look at people's art, is if I can relate to something in the piece of art. Like, Lacrosse, have you viewed art that you could actually relate to?
No, yeah, definitely. And I've actually painted like from when I was a kid. But mine, when she was saying about or they were saying about prophetic art, as I was growing up, I never drew anything or painted anything complete. It was always left unfinished and incomplete. And I didn't realize that until I got older, that's how I was handling my transition, because I couldn't transition. So I would only do half a face or a face that way, or just a hand with a missing finger. It wouldn't be finished. None of my art is ever finished, because at that point I never felt complete. So I definitely understand the prophetic art or subconscious art that it's your pain and or whatever it is you're going through. So yeah, I've been doing that since I was a kid, and I haven't done it since my transition. So I'm actually curious now that we're doing this. I'm like, wow, I should do a piece and
Try
see.
watercolors.
Yeah. My daughter does watercolors.
I'm telling you, it's all about the watercolors. I got whole drawing books full of stuff that I did not finish when I was 12. That make total sense. Like I completely understand what you're saying right now.
Yeah.
Yes, there's sometimes you get to that point in the drawing and you're like, I can't anymore. I gotta go.
I don't feel like I have all 5 fingers. I can't put my full face. I don't feel complete. Yeah, definitely.
I have, at least half a dozen paintings in various degrees of process that I'll work on something and then it just needs to sit and germinate sometimes. Yes. And it's about evolution. Like, I have a piece behind me on the easel, which you can't really tell what it is, but it's sort of everything that was going on early on in the pandemic. It's got Devil's Mountain, and it's all about the pipeline, and it has all the fires that were going on the West Coast, and it has, stuff about Native Americans. It has, stuff about Black Lives Matter. It had so many different things, and I couldn't grasp it all because it was all happening at once, kind of like that piece that B shared. And I had to put it away. I wrote a really intense poem that, that kind of was part of what it was about. And then I had to put it away. And I picked it up like a month ago, and I'm starting to work into it again. But now, as I look at it, I understand everything that I was painting, which I wasn't sure what it was at the time. So it's now it's like a little conversation that I'm having with that canvas.
Wow. Wow. I just can't imagine like not knowing what you were gonna paint and something beautiful coming out of it. So that's amazing.
It started as a completely different painting even, and I painted over it, and it just was this frenzy, and I knew what the images were that I was painting, but I didn't necessarily put them all together and understand why.
Awesome. Fabulous. Well, I just want to say that we're going to take a little break, and I want to remind you that if you have a dream, type it up in the chat so Lacrosse can interpret it. And we're going to take a little break with and hopefully give a few minutes for whoever to type their dream into the chat, and we'll be back. Okay. All right. We'll be back soon.
WLFE-DB Radio has LGBTQ shows like Across the Pond, Rainbow Soul, Everything Yet Nothing, and Inside the Drag Closet. Check out the schedule on WLFE-DB.com. You can even watch them on TV at WLFE-DB.com under LGBTQ Friends, right off our website. Again, it's WLFE-DB.com for your LGBTQ shows and more.
WLFE-DB.com, where talk radio is a whole lot better. Our shows are your shows, and that there makes for a great talk radio.
Hi, I'm Rob.
And I'm Joan. We are the hosts of Meet the Author podcast, paranormal investigators and indie published authors. But the show is not about us.
Meet the Author podcast gives you an opportunity to meet and interact with indie published authors on a weekly basis right from your own home. Find out the story behind their stories. Have a chance to hear about their work and new releases on the horizon.
Join us as we engage in casual conversation with insightful guests every Wednesday at 7 p.m. Eastern Time. You can watch us live on Facebook, YouTube, or WLFE-DB TV.
Welcome back, everyone.
Back.
Yeah.
I wanted to address something I saw in the comments earlier.
Go for it.
That how could I believe in a soul and not believe in a religion? It was a comment I think Chanel had made. I just wanted to make clear, being an atheist does not mean you don't believe in spirituality. I mean, I'm Jewish, so obviously I have a religion, but being spiritual is different. I believe in energies and things like that. So I hope that helps. I guess it's more about accountability and living your life without the need of someone dictating what is right and wrong. So I think maybe that'll address it a little. That'll be helpful, because I know people get confused when they're like, you're spiritual, but you're an atheist. And I'm like, yeah, in my case, God has nothing to do with my walk. It's my walk, and things like that.
So I think also okay, there's also agnostic, which is just people that don't really do any religion.
Right.
And they just kind of believe that there's probably some energies out there that are more powerful than them.
Right.
But otherwise,
yeah.
And I think atheist is a little bit more like, well, we are who we are. We're human beings. It's a little bit more maybe science based as far as who we are and where we came from. You think like that? You think it's more like that, right?
Yeah, it's more like that.
And I think that also being an atheist it's almost like what Annie Finch was saying last time about almost being political, like being a woman was political.
Right.
It's almost like saying I'm no religion.
Right.
And just like me saying I'm a witch is kind of saying I'm no religion.
Right.
My God is the earth, right? My goddess is the earth. The energy I believe that we all deal with comes from the earth. Right. So that's all I'm saying. But people put all kinds of cray on what witch means. So,
it's the same thing with atheists. They assume that you're just not spiritual and that you only believe in science. And, it kind of, spirituality and science can walk hand in hand. It can, when you can look at it through different perspectives. So.
Totally. Joseph here, Buddhist in the house. Totally with you on that, Joe. Buddhists believe in science. That's true. They sure do. I'm very Buddhist. And I find the Buddhist perspective to be very enlightening for me anyway. And Joseph said we sometimes call it the mystic law of cause and effects.
Right.
And yes, Sandy, you are absolutely correct. Witches can be very spiritual. I agree. And so, I think that's kind of what Rainbow Soul does. That's what we do. We come in here and we put down we take the BS, if you will, and we help sort of dismiss those belief systems about being non-binary or being atheist or being a witch, or any of those things. We try to help people understand that their belief system might not actually be correct, and that the projections onto those paths are actually not accurate.
Right.
So,
and at the end of it, I keep saying, everybody is on a path and everybody is on a journey. It's just a matter about there's no right or wrong path. There's just the path you're taking, because at the end, we're all going to end up in the same place. So it's just, this is the path you take, and this is, where it leads you to. So
that's right. Absolutely. That's right, Sandy. We're here to smooth out the BS. That's right. Because definitely there's some stuff around belief systems around things, and that's, so being non-binary, I think, and being trans, and even being drag kings. I don't know about you, Lacrosse, but as a drag king, I've had people project all kinds of weird shit on me, where I'm like, I don't know where you get that. What, you think I'm a stripper or something?
Right, exactly. No, it's no touch zone, no touchy. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So anyway, so I want to bring our guests back out. We were enjoying talking about art. And I just want to bring everybody back out. Welcome back, everybody. I'm so glad you're here. And this is a beautiful discussion about art and expressing your soul and even getting in touch with your own soul. Whether you are painting it or even witnessing it. Because I know for me, I personally have soul experiences looking at art. That's definitely happened to me. And I would say through all three of your arts. I will say that when I seen this piece, I could totally like it. There's something about the fairy element that speaks to me anyway. Like fairies and me, I identify as a fairy. And I also loved that their hair was non-binary. It's like the non-binary flag. And I was like, whoa. And even that they also appear a little otherkin. Do you know what otherkin is, B?
If by otherkin you mean changeling, I don't know. I maybe is that what is that reference to?
Mm-hmm. So otherkin is a spiritual path that's been around for a long time that has the belief system that we are also that are maybe our DNA or magically or energetically, we are also other beings that are not human. Meaning could be birds, could be werewolves, could be fairies.
I think that humans come up with all kinds of fun ways to explain things they don't understand, and that's part of the reason why I identify as agnostic is just generally understanding that, okay, like even if what you're saying sort of makes sense, and it doesn't compared to a lot of other conjectures out there, like just in general, that I would go, okay, I cannot say for sure that I know that, like, and I have a pretty open heart and open mind to all perspectives, but yeah, and this, yeah.
I'm just saying that's what spoke to me in the moment, is that vibration of feeling part fairy. I feel like a changeling sometimes. Whether it's true or not, that's how I feel. But that
was definitely going through my mind when I painted this. This was around my neuroemergence, I would say. This was around when like all the everything was starting to click. And yeah, I would, yeah. There's a deep element of changeling mythology that's wrapped up in a lot of my art. After I did some research and found out that there's a very compelling reason to believe that just changelings in general are actually just autistic people in history. Like actually that a parent saying, this isn't my child, because suddenly their child isn't making eye contact, is screaming at loud noises, doesn't want to be touched, doesn't like clothing, all the various things that are just canonically classic autism, that parents would be like, I don't understand why my child isn't acting like other children. So that's where the changeling myth came from. But also, I mean, it sort of makes sense. Almost 40% of people who are autistic identify somewhere on the spectrum of non-binary gender, which is a pretty intense correlation. I would say that it goes hand in hand with masking and gender performance being the same thing, almost inextricably. So if you just are raised in that setting and being told one thing, then you might be being told that gender performance and being a good little boy or a good little girl in the same context, and it's inseparable. But yes, the metaphor of actually a fairy, a blue fairy, let alone any other kind of fairy. You can see one over my shoulder right now because I keep one by my bed. A blue fairy whisking off the real me from some sort of sleeping sobriet is a very fitting metaphor, I think, and that it is deeply tied with my neurotype as well. That yes, a changeling. I am changeling. I do use fey pronouns sometimes. Like that very much makes sense, and I think that makes sense the more you think about it from like a human beings may have crafted this archetype, but in the context of real history, what are we actually talking about? We are talking about people exactly like us. We're talking about gender non-conforming people, and we're also talking about people who are neurodivergent when we talk about changelings in history. And all of those people who were witches and wizards, well, guess what? In our history of human beings, before colonialization, most cultures had non-binary people. And in most of those cultures, those were the shamans and the spiritual leaders. In most of those cultures, that was the case. Why is that?
I totally agree. And I am always like, I think we're special. And that's exactly what my book is all about, is that gender variant people are sacred and we are here for a reason. And that we just lost the reason somewhere in the shuffle. And in fact, speaking of like shaman energy, that's exactly what happened when I seen this. I was like, is this like the shaman of our roots? Because it kind of looks like a chimp, Amanda. And I was like, is that about like our roots as chimps? Like all humans, like I believe we come from chimps. I believe we evolved from chimps, okay? Or from monkeys or whatever. And so when I see this, I'm always like, it's like a shaman about our roots. I don't know what it meant to you, Amanda, but you could tell us more.
So this is a mandrel, and if you notice, if you look on my website, I've kind of accidentally turned into the monkey woman, and it is because when you watch a primate, you can see yourself within them, and especially once you make eye contact, like a live monkey or a gorilla, you can see that there's so much in there. And it's almost as if they have a compassion for us because they know that we've lost touch in some capacity. So the background, so when I did this mandrel, I usually do a lot of research on the animal that I'm paintings because I really geek out on facts, and I'm obsessed with their hierarchies and their behavior and how they rear their young. And the thing about mandrels is that humans have coined them as being these aggressive, horrendously aggressive creatures. But in fact, the fathers are very nurturing. And they are actually known to kidnap puppies in the wild. Troops will kidnap puppies and they will sex them. And then they train them and nurture them like family. So when there's two troops, when they're older, there's two troops that are having a quarrel or something. Instead of the males coming in to fight, they'll send in the dogs, and the dogs negotiate and will settle the score. And they have this on tape. Like, they've been researching this. It's absolutely, to me, I could just go on and on about those kinds of cool things that we miss. We don't get to see on National Geographic. It's like there's just a deeper meaning there. And this painting was actually it's a portrait of my husband as a mandrel, because and you're laughing because you know him. He does have that very gentle rearing and also a deep connection and reverence for nature, and he does have a kind of empathetic shaman. To me, I mean, he's like human, it's like unconditional love in human form, and that's kind of what I related to the mandrel and the delicacy of the butterfly and the warping, but it's still his eyes, through the mandrel's eyes, you're connecting, and it's kind of hey, we're on the same team, I see you.
Wow, it's really special. Yeah. I'm fascinated to hear you guys talk about your art, and I find that for me to look at art, and I think our guests, our audience is kind of saying some of the same things. By the way, Robert White said to UB, because those cultures needed a connection to the other world energies.
Yeah, I saw that. I mean, We're at a place right now in the world where there's a few religions that were kind of stapled onto colonialism. That I've gotten to a place where a lot of people, just because it's the status quo, it's the general consensus, they sort of are viewing everything from a framework of, well, there's the main religion, and then there's these other offshoot little ones. Like, and who knows, to what extent any religion can be held over another, even if it's got more followers or less followers. Like, they're all just ways to help explain the world we live in, right? Like, that's really what it is. And you can believe it or not, but still, follow the tenets and worship. Like, that's kind of like guidelines, really. Like, in some cases, it's really helpful because it forms societies, and in other cases, it's not that helpful because it's used to dehumanize people so that you can commit genocide on them. That's unfortunately how we've gotten to the place where we are now, where we have to be archaeologists in our own genders, in our own bodies. Like, we have to actually go through the past and find examples of how we've always been here. Like, statistically speaking, human beings, like, that's not like we're some sort of genetic defect. We are an evolutionary adaptation. We're part of how humans are supposed to be and how we're supposed to work. And that there were cultures that used to look at that and go, "This is great. No, you're perfect. You can teach all these children. Like, you can do this. Tell us more. Like, tell us about, we thought it was, whatever." And then we get to the point where we're at today, where any kind of deviance from this very strict binary code is seen as, it's like an echo from our colonialist ancestors, who are sending forward the message that, like, hey, anything other than this binary has got to go because it's not pure or something. And that's how violence was, like, that's very specific binary thing that is, tied into all the papals of Christianity, that was used to enact violence against people exactly like us in every culture. And because human beings in every culture, non-binary people are going to be born, and every year there's going to be more of us. It's not like there's some different percentage wise. It's just, no, that more of us are more comfortable coming out now. That's it. That's all it is. Like, we've always been here. We haven't necessarily, in certain cultures, always had the words to describe ourselves. But I know so many people, if they had just been provided with the lexicon, would have come out sooner. They would have come out when they were children. They would have said, I know what I am. It's this because I have the words to describe it. In the absence of those words, though, you're just grasping at straws. You literally are in the dark. And then you go through your whole life going, okay, I'm going to pretend to be this one way because everyone is telling me that. That's how we get so many traumatized adults who can't even come out. They want to, but they have no idea how to. They aren't capable of that kind of self-love. They've spent 30, 40, 50 years not loving themselves, really.
Speaking of trauma and healing trauma, one of the big things that they talk about during healing trauma is the vagus nerve. And so when I seen this, and then I seen the name of it by Shara, vagus nerve, I was like, it is what I thought it was. And I mean, you want to tell us about this, Shara? Why you were compelled to paint this?
So I was doing a training in something called biofield flow healing, which is very much about vagus nerve decompression. And for people who don't know what the vagus nerve is, it is a nerve that starts at the base, at the top of your spine, like where your brain stem meets your spine, and it goes all the way down your spine to your tailbone. And on the way, it actually goes through all of the systems in the body, the heart and the kidneys and the lungs. And a lot of people believe that when you're ill, that it manifests in your body in places where there's no flow through the vagus nerve. So this piece was very much about learning how to move that energy and that flow. And it also is slated to be the cover of the book that my teacher is writing about this, which isn't quite ready for publishing yet. But yeah, this piece, not only was it a great way to express all of what was going on energetically, it taught me a lot about my technique as well. But there's like about 50 layers in this piece. It looks very different than the way it started, and everything is glazes, so you can see what's going on behind it if you look closely. but it's really about how energy flows in our body, and there's so much more than just the one spot. Like you have an injury, and you look at, like, say your knee, you're having a problem with your knee, but it's all connected through the spine, and what that represents in our body maps is so much more than just your knee. There's emotional things, there's myth that's connected to it. It's connected to astrology, where all of the chakras live physically in your body, and like where in your Aries rules the head, and there's a way when you look at the lobes of the brain that it makes the ram's horn shape of the Aries symbol, and you can track that all the way through your body, through every chakra and through every body part. It's really fascinating, but it's all part of a process of how we heal our body stories and our stuckness.
Yeah, in fact, I wondered if it had healing effect on you, Shara, because like for me to imagine my nerve to be flowing energy up and down and to be in the curves it's supposed to be, is one of the ways that I heal myself. Like I actually breathe in the energy from the earth and release out anything that was like blocking parts off or don't belong there anymore. And then I'm breathing down also the energy of the other world, which I don't have a god really, but I'm just breathing in like the energy of nature. For instance, if I'm under trees particularly, I'll pull down the energy from them to bless, and that's the nerve that I'm sending all of this up and down on. That's
absolutely, Absolutely. I do that. I hug trees and I envision that line of energy traveling through the trunk and up into the branches and out into the sky and through the roots down into the earth. And yeah, it definitely changed some of my language with my art and with my own personal being. And it definitely was part of my path of my own healing, for sure.
Yeah, I just find that that's exactly like, it was exactly a healing piece, a very like it felt like a healing piece to me, you know. So hey, Lacrosse, do they have that kind of thing in Taino culture? Do they talk about like the chakras or the energy center?
Not that I'm aware of. But I know the whole thing with the trees and the earth connection, and how we believe it's the best way to visualize is, I don't know if you've ever seen the movie Avatar about the blue people. That's technically based on the Tainos, and how they would touch the tails and it would touch the tree and they could actually communicate. That's actually a real belief system in the Tainos. So we could touch a tree, send a message through the tree, it goes to another side of the island, and then they receive it. And we also believe that the trees could give us nourishment. Everything was all interconnected. But as far as like in the physical body, like they didn't have anything written down. Everything was petroglyphs. It was just a picture of a tree. Okay, the tree's connected to this, and that's connected to that, and everything was always interconnected. So it's very primitive, but effective. So
yeah, I was just wondering. I was just curious. Yeah.
But that whole thing of the connection, like I said, through the tail, I don't know, maybe the tail represent that part of the neck. I don't know.
That's what I was
because
just
if that's
thinking.
your spine, and we did at some point have tails. So
this just makes me want to talk about fungi.
I was getting there too. Yes, the mycelium underground too.
My higher power is a 500-year-old tree, and it's mycelium. It's in the forest.
Okay.
I could show you it. It's a beautiful tree, but
I would love to see it.
Definitely the interconnectedness resonates.
Yeah. That's what you're gonna paint next, right, B?
Actually, to be fair, I don't know if I can paint a mycelium with watercolor. And not only are they 3-dimensional organisms, but they're almost entirely subterranean. So it's a little bit like painting a spider web, but the web is underground, and it's very big. Actually, you know what? That might make a fun abstract. Maybe if I get some resin and some like rubbing alcohol and really go to work on the watercolor page, that we'll get with some cool little spots here and there. But yeah, the interconnectedness that we all experience on some level spiritually is deeply similar to the nature in which mycelium connects all the plants and redistributes nutrients in the soil. It's definitely very, very similar and evocative.
It's also very connected to the World Wide Web, the internet. You know, I remember something. I don't remember the exact facts of this statistic, but the mycelium networks underground can cover miles and miles, and it connects the different trees to each other. Where you know, if one tree is struggling, other trees will send it nourishment through the mycelium network.
Yeah, it is. The trees aren't even necessarily communicating. The middleman is the fungi. Like one tree is experiencing burns on one side. It needs a tremendous amount of nitrogen fast for new veg growth. What does it do? It goes ahead and communicates with the mycelium, says, I need nitrogen like now. And then the mycelium's like, okay, give me all the carbon you have. I'll get you some nitrogen. And then researchers are able to notice that trees a mile away are starting to deplete in their nitrogen levels, because the mycelium is carrying nitrogen from those trees, being like, hey, you got a little extra nitrogen and it's just doing all of it. Like the mushroom is literally just doing all the work.
There's theories about mycelium being able to clean up all the pollution in the oceans and filter water, and like, I mean, there's like amazing.
Oh yeah, there's a guy in Forest Knolls, like an hour up the coast, who's training a fungi to eat plastic, specifically the kind of like nasty stuff you get after fires, because we've had the wildfires up here and they've burned out houses, and you know, some of that pollution you can't do anything with, but you can train a mushroom to eat it. You can train a mushroom to break apart the elemental compositions and redistribute them. It's wild. I hope that's the future, because that makes so much sense. Like,
does seem to me like mushrooms have some interesting roles to play. Now they're making like packaging for your packages out of mushrooms.
Oh yeah, I mean it
breaks down too. It's sorry,
it's
go
smart.
ahead, me.
It's just smarter. Smarter to use the mushroom bits.
There's less people, you know, less of these big corporations making big profits, so that's why it hasn't happened yet. So it's you know, bringing the consciousness and the awareness to more people. You know, I'm definitely a champion for mushrooms and mycelium.
And it seems like in Oregon now, I know a lot of people that take mushrooms in order to get closer to the divine. And in Oregon, it's helping with, people are using it for mental health. They've actually legalized it, and there's a pill that's apparently a magic mushroom. Like, I mean, that's what they called it in the 80s, in the 90s, when I first heard about it, magic mushrooms.
It's the most compelling antidepressant I've ever experienced.
There's ways to use it, like microdosing, where you take, you know, small amounts of psilocybin mushrooms and niacin, and it sends it through your system, and you take these small amounts, so you're not having like this big psychedelic experience, but you're having a keener awareness of everything. Your brain is functioning much faster and much more efficiently, and there's some belief that it even can help with brain degenerative diseases like Alzheimer's, and like minimizing and mitigating that, you know, brain function loss. There's so many ways that it's like the answer to many things.
For some people, and I think
not to mention Lyme treatment, it's like several mushrooms, cordyceps and lion's mane. I could go on and on. I'm sorry.
Yeah, it's okay. No, mushrooms are really cool. I do enjoy actual mushrooms that you eat, like lion's mane. Amanda, I see your cute little mushroom earrings. I love mushrooms in that way. I'm not much of a magic mushroom person either, Chanel. I'm not much of a magic mushroom person either.
Yeah. They're definitely not for that kind of pain.
No.
Oh gosh. And if you have any unresolved trauma, probably wait. probably take your time. But the microdosing does work for a lot of people. It does, in the very smallest doses, provide you with clarity and ego death, which for a lot of people I know who are trans, it was psychedelics that helped them break that egg and actually remove their ego for a few hours and then come back to it and be like, wait a minute, I don't want to wear this coat. I just realized that there were other options. So wait, come back. It may be temporary insanity, but it does provide you with that clarity. And so many people I know who moved and went to a different state and just started their a new life, because they had mushrooms one time, and it definitely allowed them to see themselves from a different perspective.
Yeah, I know someone that cured themselves of cancer by microdosing. So there's a lot of magic, definitely a lot of magic in that. And I think whatever you choose to be your divine being or a representation of your divine being is absolutely your choice. And that's the beauty of freedom, I suppose. In that, for me, trees are it. As long as I have trees, I'm okay. Which there are places in the world where trees don't exist. So if you take me to the desert, I feel a little like a fish out of water. I feel like there's no trees and that I could die in any moment. I don't know why it feels so intense, but it does to me. So, and I think that, and I think that our divine can be reflected in millions of things, in hundreds, thousands of things. I don't even know what the limit would be in that. So I think whatever it is, then that's who you are, and that's it. And that's and that's what's speaking to you in the moment, right? Yeah. Maybe the way Amanda, I wonder, Amanda, you must have a very special relationship with monkeys in general, because most of your images are some sort of monkey. Not all of them, but a lot of them are. And I'm like, is that your totem animal?
I'm not sure if I would necessarily say that was my totem animal. I love how diverse they are, and I feel like humans are that way. I love, I love the way they move. I don't know. I love how different they are and bright and magical looking. And I had a special relationship with a monkey when I was little. His name was Jojo. And I know this sounds crazy, but we lived in Tennessee, and there was a gas station. This is going to sound awful, but this was back in the 80s. And there was a gas station, and the guy that owned the gas station had a chimpanzee, and his name was Jojo, and my middle name was Joe. And I'm like, ooh. And he'd always let me go in the back and hang out, just hang out with him. And it was just, I love JoJo. And that was my
it's okay.
for a while. And I don't know why he was back there. I don't know the story, but I just loved him.
I love monkeys too. So that's why I was just curious, because this guy kind of looks like a little bit of an old dude, where you're kind of like,
yes,
I don't know, you're like, anything he says I should probably consider it, right? Because I tend to listen to my elders. I tend to listen to my elders and go, is what they're, I tend to really consider what elders have to say. It's just who I am, and that's what this guy speaks to me as an elder.
That's like a Wilford Brimley mustache.
Yeah, I was seeing that too.
This is an old world monkey. They're kind of in the same genus as the like a gibbon almost. But yeah, they're neat. They look really aggressive, but again, they're so sweet that it makes them vulnerable, because they're kind of curious about humans, but we eat them.
I see monkeys as being sort of part of the linked chain of human evolution, but they're less tainted, in a way. You know what I mean? They're they're more purely connected, and they have less artifice. And I think so much of the human condition is about finding your most authentic self. And I think animals are their authentic selves. They don't have they don't put on any artifice, right?
Right.
Yeah, there's no guile to
Yeah, I
them.
agree. And
There's
Right.
what they are is what they are.
Stuff like that.
And then there's bonobos.
They are unapologetic.
But we can see a little of ourselves in all. Sorry, we can see a little of ourselves in all of them. It's why Disney is so good at anthropomorphizing their animated characters, because they see the aspects of our own human nature in all of the animals as well.
Yeah, for sure.
That's probably why they come as spirit guides throughout your life.
Absolutely.
Oh yeah, sure.
Yeah, for sure. And that's kind of like this piece B made me this piece because of all the different animals.
Oh yeah.
I felt like this was so like I could totally imagine myself there as the rabbit, or as it looks like a cricket or something up here in the front playing the little like.
Oh yeah, that's me. That's a little bee. I'm actually playing a mountain dulcimer there, but it's not the kind that most people are familiar. It's like a stick dulcimer, just like a little 3-string instrument. And then that was my partner Beck on the ukulele over there, and then that's Ty on the drum. Little melodeon up there. That's Lana. Yeah, it was a regular little festival of non-binary friends just like drinking tea and making watercolors. It's fantastic. And then we ended up making music. Like everyone knew the lyrics to a couple of songs, so we were just on the back porch. And so I was where I'm sitting. We were all where we're sitting in this picture, but obviously we were human beings. I wasn't standing away from it to have viewed this, except that I was so in the moment that later I very easily could paint and recreate exactly where we were all sitting and where everything was. And then that doesn't happen that often. Like usually when I paint something, I am flying, shooting from the hip. In this case, I started out with a perfect image in my head, knowing exactly what I wanted, and it's so rare that happens. So I was so happy that you enjoyed it and that it's fun to share. But like it has come together, and this one was at least 4 layers. Like a good amount of the shadows in this painting are actually like a very, very deep blue. But because a lot of the rest of the painting was done in yellow, or with a yellow light source, like the shadows on the deck and on the fronts of characters, that it looks gray, but it is actually definitely like a very, very specific blue color.
Wow, I just thought that it was very like relatable, like
yeah, like, a lot of little animal people, little anthropomorphized animal people.
Because I'm always like, oh, they're kind of like a bird, like lacrosse here is kind of like a crow.
Yeah, everything's crow. Everything's a crow.
Something just occurred to me that maybe it was why that resonates a little bit. So like, are you used to being treated one way, but then you would prefer to be treated another way? Mm-hmm. Are you used to people projecting onto you how you would like to be treated without actually finding out beforehand how you would like to be treated? Yeah.
Isn't that the non-binary experience?
Exactly, precisely, which is probably why there's so many non-binary people with like 19 stuffed animals. That the experience of encountering an animal who you do not know the gender of, and then treating that animal exactly as that animal appears. This is deer. They are a deer. Easy to know. Like, oh, I'm just going to treat you like if you meet a dog on the street and it's a friendly dog and it runs up to you. Hi, buddy. I'm not even sure if you're a boy or girl, but it doesn't matter because I know how to treat you like a child, just like a small, excited child. Very easy. And send them on their way. And that, yeah, I long to be treated that way sometimes. Like I long to be treated just like a person instead of like a because I'm 6'3", like if I'm wearing a mask and I'm wandering around, people are going to project onto me and they're not going to know that they're hurting me to project that way. They don't know. Like how often gender reinforcements happens in our society where people just say colloquially, oh, hey man, what's up, man? What's good, man? Like, I don't need that. I don't need that in my life. But yet some people actually really feel validated by that. And I definitely have partners who like occasionally I've snuck in like, okay, man. And they've been like, oh, euphoria, you know, like I'm not a man, but I do like that, you know? Yeah, like that sometimes also is the case. Like, of course you would love anthropomorphized animals. You know exactly who Bird is. They're Bird, you know, like that is, there's a longing there that, you know, for an actual real place and, you know, in your imagination that could be real.
I
If
love
you
that.
just wear in a, you know, a mascot suit and then see, excuse me, Bird, can you get out of the line? You're blocking the way of the queue. Oh yeah, sure, absolutely.
When I do body art with people is that it completely transforms people. And Hollis knows and Bright Hawk knows, because I've worked with them in that way many a time. It goes beyond gender. It goes beyond even human. It goes into a place that is about just pure energy. And one of the things that has been feedback for me more than anything from people that I've painted has been how they were able to step outside of their self and be something different, and or step into themselves in a deeper way and be witnessed in that way, where, you know, like you said, so many people are seen, especially if you have a public persona.
Yeah.
People make assumptions and they have an idea of who you are, and sometimes you can't even get away from that. But when you're wearing paint, then you're suddenly not that anymore, and people don't even necessarily recognize you as that, but they see you and see you in a very different way. And I always felt very honored to be able to be that sort of conduit to like open that doorway for people.
Mm-hmm.
I know hairdressers who get the same feeling in a smaller amount, just a little bit, like helping someone look the way they want to look, you know, because it's hard. You can't cut your own hair. You got to try to like explain it to someone. But yeah, what you're describing is like wearing a mask, like really like the same reason why anyone who has never worn something over their face or something to cover up who they are, so that it's not just your skin and it's literally an actual cover. Like, as many people survive by masking, some people don't realize that they are. Some people don't realize they are until they've had their body painted and they're wandering around and they're getting treated totally different. And they know that everyone looking at them isn't seeing them. They're seeing something else. It's like wearing sunglasses in a crowded room. Like, it's very similar. You are wearing a mask in a sense. You get a chance to like look at people and not have them looking back at you, which is
kind of like wearing a costume, which I think like lacrosse can identify.
Yep.
I mean, for me, where Shara knows me, and I don't know if you've ever seen it, lacrosse, but I birthed my hobbit out of drag. And being a hobbit is like, because people usually find me intimidating for some reason. They think I'm like this evil being, and I'm just like, what is wrong with you? I'm more like a hobbit, you weirdo. And I don't know why people think that about me, but the ones that don't, I notice, are often the ones from the fairy festival, or of course drag. Drag doesn't do that, but many magical people. I think it's my Scorpio rising. People project onto me that I'm some sort of like evil person. And I'm just like, no, I'm a freaking hobbit, man. I'm about as harmless as a hobbit.
You're mistaking evil for intense.
There is a level of intensity for sure that often gets mistaken or misinterpreted. You know, and people feel threatened by like people who are not in touch with their own higher self. They often feel threatened by people who are in their center, who are speaking from their core with passion and integrity and whatnot, you know?
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. It's like when someone has a negative reaction to someone just confidently being themselves, it's usually a lack of self-love that's happening. And that's where the entire conversation originates from. It's not like you didn't do anything wrong. They just are afraid because they don't know how to love themselves like that. And they're like rebelling. Like part of their brain's like, I only know how to deal with this with like violence or like, you know, something else, but like not, I don't understand how someone could possibly like love themselves like that because I can't. And that's it. That's exactly where it's coming from. It's almost always negative, I think. They don't know what that is.
Authenticity's definitely got me in a couple of unusual or uncomfortable situations. Lacrosse, I know that you have totally met people that only knew you as one way or the other, either without drag or in drag.
Yeah.
And then they meet you out of drag.
And they're like, because they assume that you're the personas or these characters that you're playing. And yes, that is partially true. That character is a part of me, but that is not me in full. So they, we were talking about the mask, and you have this mask. So I would do drag and cover this up so that way I could share just this one part, because that's all you get. Because my heart is valuable to me. So I'm not going to give you everything. So I'll give you a piece. So here's Edward Scissorhands. What part of me is that? But what happens is that when they meet you after, they assume you're this, or I'm like the Joker. Oh, you're like the Joker. No, that's just a part of me. I'm not the Joker. I'm not like the Joker. I just this little bit is. I'm a little crazy, but not that crazy, But and then what happens is it kind of, they figure you have this extravagant lifestyle, this insanity, this crazy party life, and realize then you're actually a boring person who goes to work and you take care of your family, and I do home renovations, and and realize that I'm actually a real person, and then the excitement's gone. And then they're like, I don't want to hear what you have to say. Just go put Edward back on. Okay.
Like RuPaul said, we're all born naked and the rest is drag. And it's really even how you choose to present yourself when you go out in the world every day, when you go to your job or whatever. People in mundania, people who are out at festivals, anywhere that you are. A lot of people I know have, like, it's almost like being bipolar. They have dual personalities. They go to work and they're this one person, and then on the weekends and the rest of their life, they're this other person. And I feel like we need to integrate all those things. And
I was gonna say, I got 70 personalities in the basement of costumes.
Yeah, I was gonna say, now I got into drama. Like, oh, fuck.
Right?
Yeah.
Exactly. I have totally had a great. So go ahead, Amanda. Go ahead.
I was gonna say, like, ever since I was little, my great grandfather started to call me Storm, and I've been Storm forever. And it wasn't until a few years ago, I was renamed at Burning Man Solace. And it was so funny to be around people that knew me and are like, ooh, Storm. There they are, like, there's Storm. And then it was just like Solace. And it's interesting because I am both, very much so. I am Solace and I am Storm. And it did take me, there was an integration process of really embodying both and being okay with that. Like, and the reasons why I was called Storm was because I was incredibly incorrigible, I guess is a good word.
I always wondered why.
And my grandfather, I was loud and I just was not easily controlled. I had to do things my way, but there's also solace, and I walk in my everyday as both.
Isn't it all about balance?
I will answer to both because I am both.
I think we're always struggling for that balance. We're all so multifaceted. Nobody is just one thing all the time. And
we have how many lives we probably lived. Like, how could you possibly be? You are a library of so many different beautiful expressions. Like, when it rocket.
We are all perfect, imperfect reflections of the stars, of the universe. And that's one of the reasons I love astrology, is because each and every one of us is super unique. Especially if you consider the whole chart and you don't just look at one sign. Because if you just look at one sign, that's not going to tell you much. You have to look at the whole chart, and you realize that every single person, as you become an astrologer, that every single person is like unique as every flower, as unique as every star. Everything is and then you can be wowed by the uniqueness of every human being, which I think is its own magic. So I want to thank all of you for being on the show. Thank you, Shara, for bringing your beautiful magic art, your healing art. And thank you, Amanda, for bringing your amazing animal faces that just touch me every time I look at them. And thank you, B, for bringing your total non-binary self and your fantastic art. I just totally love the watercolors and love the way it's expressed, and think it's fantastic. And Lacrosse, thank you, man, for doing this with me every week.
Of course.
You're a brave man.
Yep. I'm like, okay, now I want to go paint.
Yeah, I was gonna say, go to some of those ones you didn't finish when you were younger, and paint them, paint the spots you didn't do, but paint them. If they're drawn, then you might be able to do this kind of creative thing where it's like it's one figure but a different figure blended. Who knows?
Okay, Lacrosse. Now, if you get them painted, you have to bring them on the show and show us.
Oh boy. Okay, we'll see.
Speaking of art, this beautiful deck, I'm going to do a quick reading for everybody. This is the Love is Love deck, or Pride deck. And the beautiful thing about this is it's a collaborative deck. So every single one of these cards is done by a different artist. And that's one of my favorite things, is collaboration. And it's not for everyone, but it's definitely in my vibration, and one of the things that I love about this deck. So as I pull out 3 cards, I've been shuffling while I've been listening to everybody, just to bring the energy of everybody that's here, including everybody that's in the audience. And, you know, if you're watching this live, or you watching this recorded, or listening to this recorded later on, please know that this reading is for you, and just take what you like and leave the rest. Okay. Take what vibes with you, leave everything else. It's probably meant for somebody else anyway. So the first card here is this is the 2 of Pentacles, which is a non-binary, beautiful person balancing on a heart with an infinity symbol, which is actually about love, because look around, look at their feet, look at what's happening there, which is the vibration of, look at it. It's exactly what we're living in. It's one viewpoint, which is, you know, peace and love and everything like that. And the other viewpoint of, you know, being queer is wrong, for instance. But this character here is balancing on infinity and love, because love is forever. Love is always there. And that's what this card is to remind you of, is that no matter what's going on in the world, my friends, if you're coming from a place of love, it's going to leave you in a good place. It's going to take you to good places. And that's what this is about. And that's what this character is here to represent for you.
My friends, it's going to leave you
and
in a good place.
This person is dancing with the Pentacles, which is actually all about manifestations. So if you can balance on love and infinity, which, as you can see, this isn't the easiest thing, although this character makes it look very easy. It's not always easy, but if you can do that, you can balance your manifestations and bring them to the world as needed. And you know you have a special gift to bring. Whatever that gift is, you know what it is. It's inside of you, and it will come and manifest in a good way for you. So that's what this is all about. It will manifest in the world in the way it needs to be here. And this card here is the Page of Cups, which is, if you check this out, this fish is like shooting its whatever at a cat's third eye, right? And you're just like, wait a minute. The fact that it's a fish, usually cats like to eat fish. Cups usually represents emotions, and there's like a ocean behind them, like a huge wave of emotion. But this fish is the fish is sending a message to the cat, right? And the cat seems to be receiving it in a good way, and in fact has like an outfit on of little flowers, you can see there, right? And so the cat is actually receiving the message. And so that's what this is about, is that if there was something that you heard tonight, Lacrosse, hearing, oh yeah, I should go back and finish my paintings, or whatever it was, whatever you heard, whatever was like, oh, So my paintings don't have to be of a perfect animal face or be this thing that I thought it should be. Maybe it could just be abstract. That's what this is all about. This is about receiving the psychic messages that help you channel through your emotional experience in a better way. And that's what this is all about. And the future card, and that's what this is about, like right now. So the past is, dealing with the insanity in our world that we've had to deal with, the messages we've heard tonight. And this future is an interesting card. This is a shaman person. And talk about shaman, non-binary shamans, right? That's exactly what this is. And this person is walking around with like a staff, which in most magical places is a magical staff, like, and especially if you have tree branches on it. And this person is very indigenous in a way, right? I'm trying to get the camera to focus on it. Maybe I have to change the lighting. But they're also on a beach, which to me usually means that there's new beginnings, because a beach is constantly forming a new life, right? And the grasses are on the behind them, and they're wearing very indigenous clothing, and you can't really tell their gender. You could make a guess if you wanted to, but I would guess them. And their sex doesn't really matter, but some people it might matter to them, but it never matters to me. And I'm the one reading the deck. So, so this is about the non-binary magical shaman. That's exactly what this is about. This is about the non-binary, the gender variant, the divine androgen, the two-spirit, whatever you want to call it. Doesn't matter what label you put on it, but the shaman that comes from being outside the gender variance, from being, even allies have a special role. Why? Because you communicate to these crazy people right here, and you tell them that, no, I'm around queer people all the time and I didn't catch it. Y'all is crazy, right? Okay. That's the role of an ally. Seriously, that's your role. That's your role to go, I have lots of non-binary friends and I don't catch it. No, I think you're okay. And so you have a medicine to deliver. And that's what this is about. Take your medicine to the world and bring it out and project it out. New beginnings. This is also a new beginnings type of card, where if you have shamanism or medicine to offer the world, bring it on. So in that, my friends, I want to thank you for watching tonight. I want to thank all of our viewers. Sandy, thank you for being here. She said, I have thoroughly enjoyed tonight's show. Such beautiful art. Everyone have a great week. We'll see you next week, Sandy. And, I totally want to show deep gratitude for all of our viewers. And I just want to say thank you, thank you, thank you. And just know that I am creating fabulous clothing for you to wear and to help support Rainbow Soul. So take a look at it, and I'll see you next week. Thank you, Eve. Great show. Thank you, Eve. We appreciate you. We love you, and we'll see you next week, my friends.
Thank you for watching Rainbow Soul, part of the WLFE DB Network, a queer perspective on spirituality beyond religion. We appreciate you sharing the show on your timeline. Follow us on social media of your choice and join our Facebook group, Rainbow Soul. We want to hear from you. Share your topic ideas for Hollis and Lacrosse. Explore upcoming shows and interesting guests. The Rainbow Soul Facebook group, where we build community of questioning seekers. Rainbow Soul, where spirituality is our medicine.